You have probably noticed it by now. The smarter you get, the more alone you feel. You try to explain something that seems obvious to you, backed by facts, evidence, logic, and you watch people's eyes glaze over. Or worse, they get angry, defensive, like you have insulted them just by thinking clearly. And here's the part that messes with your head. It's not that they don't understand what you're saying, it's that they can't afford to understand it, because understanding would force them to admit something about themselves, about the world, about the lies they have been living inside. And instead of facing that discomfort, they choose something easier. They choose stupidity. Now, most people think stupidity is about being dumb, low IQ, bad education. But what if I told you that's completely wrong? What if stupidity is not a lack of intelligence, but a surrender of it? And what if one man, a theologian executed by the Nazis just weeks before the war ended, figured out exactly how this happens, why it's more dangerous than evil itself, and why you will never convince someone once they have crossed that line? His name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and this is the theory you were never meant to hear. December 1942. Germany is at war. The Nazi regime is at its peak. Millions are dying. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a brilliant theologian, a pastor, a double agent working inside German military intelligence, sits down to write a letter. Not to the public, not to history. To 3 close friends, fellow conspirators, men who were risking their lives to kill Adolf Hitler. It's Christmas, and Bonhoeffer knows he might not survive. So he writes them a reflection, a confession, a warning. He calls it After 10 Years. And buried inside this letter is one of the most brutal psychological observations ever written. He's watching his own country, educated, sophisticated, cultured Germany, fall into madness. And he's trying to answer one question. How did this happen? Not to uneducated peasants, not to people who did not know better, to professors, doctors, engineers, people with advanced degrees. How do intelligent people become instruments of evil? And his answer is terrifying. Because he does not blame ignorance. He does not blame the cruelty. He blames something far more insidious. He calls it stupidity. But not the kind you think. Listen to what Bonhoeffer actually wrote. He said this: "Stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice." Read that again. More dangerous than malice. Why? Because you can fight evil. You can expose it. You can resist it. Evil makes people uncomfortable. It leaves a trace, a guilty conscience, a crack you can exploit. But stupidity? Against stupidity we are defenseless, Bonhoeffer writes. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Why? Because the stupid person doesn't care about your facts. You bring them evidence and they dismiss it. You show them contradictions in their beliefs and they get more entrenched. You prove them wrong with irrefutable data and they call it irrelevant. Bonhoeffer writes, facts that contradict one's prejudgment simply need not be believed, and when facts are irrefutable, they are just pushed aside as inconsequential. Sound familiar? Now here's the twist. Bonhoeffer makes it clear, stupidity has nothing to do with intelligence. He writes, there are human beings who are of remarkably agile intellect yet stupid, and others who are intellectually quite dull, yet anything but stupid. So, what is it then? What's the difference? Bonhoeffer's answer is chilling. He says stupidity is not a lack of brain power, it's a surrender of independence. Under certain circumstances, he writes, people are made stupid, or they allow this to happen to them. Made stupid, not born stupid, made stupid. And here's the mechanism. When a powerful force rises, political, religious, social, it offers people something irresistible, certainty, belonging, identity, purpose. But there's a cost. To join, you have to stop thinking for yourself. Bonhoeffer writes, under the overwhelming impact of rising power, humans are deprived of their inner independence and more or less consciously give up establishing an autonomous position. They stop asking questions. They stop weighing evidence. They stop being individuals. And here's the scariest part. In conversation with him, Bonhoeffer says, one virtually feels that one is dealing not at all with a person, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like that have taken possession of him. You're not talking to them anymore. You're talking to the ideology that's colonized their brain. They've become a vessel, a repeater, a tool. And the worst part? Having thus become a mindless tool, the stupid person will also be capable of any evil, and at the same time, incapable of seeing that it is evil. They can commit atrocities and feel righteous doing it, because they're no longer thinking, they're obeying. So now you understand why your arguments don't work. You think you're talking to a person, but you're actually talking to a system. A mental framework that filters out anything that threatens its stability. Bonhoeffer explains it perfectly. The stupid person is often stubborn, but he is not independent. Stubbornness looks like strength, like conviction. But it's the opposite. It's fragility disguised as certainty. Because deep down, they know. If they let one doubt in, the whole structure collapses. So they double down, they attack, they deflect. Not because you're wrong, but because you're right. And that's unbearable. This is why Bonhoeffer says, "Never again will we try to persuade the stupid person with reasons, for it is senseless and dangerous." Dangerous, because when you challenge their belief system, you're not just disagreeing, you're threatening their identity. And people will fight to the death to protect that. Now here's where it gets even darker. Bonhoeffer noticed something crucial. People who have isolated themselves from others or who live in solitude manifest this defect less frequently than individuals or groups of people inclined or condemned to sociability. Translation: stupidity is a group phenomenon. The more you need to belong, the more vulnerable you are. It would seem that stupidity is perhaps less a psychological than a sociological problem, he writes. And then he drops the bombshell. Every strong upsurge of power in the public sphere, be it of a political or of a religious nature, infects a large part of humankind with stupidity. It's almost a law of nature. The power of the one needs the stupidity of the other. Think about that. Every authoritarian regime, every cult, every mass movement, they don't succeed because people are dumb. They succeed because people surrender their intelligence in exchange for certainty and belonging. And once that trade is made, you can't reason them out of it, because they didn't reason themselves into it. So what's the solution? Bonhoeffer is brutally honest. Only an act of liberation, not instruction, can overcome stupidity. You can't teach someone out of it. You can't debate them out of it. They have to be freed from it. And here's the tragic part. In most cases, a genuine internal liberation becomes possible only when external liberation has preceded it. Meaning what? The external power structure has to collapse first. The regime has to fall. The leader has to die. The movement has to crumble. Then, and only then, can people wake up. Until that happens, we must abandon all attempts to convince the stupid person. It's not cynicism, it's survival. Bonhoeffer wrote this letter in December 1942. 4 months later, he was arrested. 2 years later, on April 9th, 1945, he was hanged, just weeks before Germany surrendered. He never lived to see the liberation he wrote about, but his words survived, and they're more relevant now than ever, because we're living in an age of manufactured stupidity, algorithms that reward certainty over curiosity, echo chambers that punish doubt, ideologies, left, right, religious, secular, that demand total loyalty in exchange for belonging, and millions of people, smart people, educated people, are making the same trade Bonhoeffer warned about. They're surrendering their independence, becoming vessels for slogans, repeating ideas they never questioned, and attacking anyone who dares to think clearly. So, here's the hard truth. If you've been wondering why it feels so lonely to think for yourself, this is why. You're not broken. You're just refusing to make the trade. You're keeping your independence. And in a world addicted to certainty, that makes you dangerous. But it also makes you free. Bonhoeffer's final words on the subject were these: "The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom." Meaning what? That real intelligence isn't about having all the answers. It's about staying humble enough to keep questioning, brave enough to stand alone, and strong enough to resist the comfort of stupidity. That's the theory. And now you know why they never wanted you to hear it.